Let's talk about Chicago, a city famous for deep dish pizza, a giant reflective bean, and a spirit of independence that runs deep in its history. From its iconic skyline to its vibrant neighborhoods, Chicago has always been a place where people stand up for what they believe in. And now that spirit is front and center in a political showdown with the White House, as the city faces off against federal power in a way that's making national headlines. On August 30th, 2025, Mayor Brandon Johnson signed an executive order forbidding Chicago police from cooperating with any federal agents or National Guard troops President Trump might send. This move was not just symbolic, it was a direct response to growing concerns about federal overreach and the protection of local values. This isn't just a disagreement, it's a bold move to keep local control over law enforcement and draw a clear line between city cops and federal agents. City leaders say it's about defending Chicago's right to make its own decisions, especially when it comes to policing its own streets. The order is specific. Chicago police must wear uniforms, keep body cameras on at all times, and follow strict protocols to ensure transparency and accountability. Officers are also required to never hide their identities. Unlike some federal agents seen in other cities, who have operated in unmarked uniforms and without name tags, raising concerns about accountability, the message is clear. If federal troops show up, Chicago cops won't join them, especially on immigration enforcement. The city is drawing a firm boundary, signaling that it won't be part of controversial federal crackdowns. Johnson calls it a defense of the city's sovereignty and civil liberties, declaring, "We will protect our Constitution, our city, and our people." Supporters say this is about standing up for Chicago's values and protecting vulnerable communities. This sets the stage for a high-stakes clash between Chicago and the federal government, with the whole country watching to see who will blink first. Sending federal troops into American cities isn't new, it's a practice with a long and complex history. Think Eisenhower in Little Rock or Kennedy in Alabama during the Civil Rights era, when federal intervention was seen as a necessary step to enforce civil rights. Back then, federal power enforced court-ordered civil rights, ensuring that desegregation was implemented despite local resistance. Today it's about fighting local crime, often against the wishes of city leaders who argue they know their communities best. Critics warn this blurs the line between federal and local authority, risking a national police force the founders never wanted and potentially undermining local governance. Legally, it's murky. The Posse Comitatus Act limits military use in domestic law enforcement, but exceptions like the Insurrection Act exist, allowing for military intervention under certain conditions. Additionally, federal law enforcement agencies face fewer restrictions, giving them more leeway in their operations. This gray area lets presidents send agents with different rules and less accountability than local police, creating potential conflicts. That's why Johnson's order matters. It's a stand against centralized power and a defense of local democracy, emphasizing the importance of local consent. The order warns that federal deployments without local consent undermine democratic norms and city sovereignty, posing a threat to the balance of power. For Chicago, federal intervention isn't help. It's an intrusion that could escalate tensions and violence, making an already volatile situation even worse. Why is Mayor Johnson so defiant? He's got the numbers. Chicago's seen a 30% drop in homicides and robberies, and shootings are down nearly 40%. Hardly a city in crisis. Johnson argues that federal intervention would disrupt progress and undermine trust in local law enforcement. The order's insistence on clear police identification responds to fears of anonymous, aggressive federal tactics. Johnson is ready to fight in court if needed, framing this as a battle for the city's right to self-govern. For him, it's not just politics. It's about protecting Chicago's progress and autonomy. The White House's response? Largely dismissive. Spokeswoman Abigail Jackson called Johnson's order a publicity stunt, arguing that if local leaders focused less on fighting the president, their cities would ultimately be safer. President Trump and his allies see Chicago as a crime epicenter, blaming Democratic leadership for what they call repeated failure. For them, federal intervention is a necessary fix, not an example of government overreach. This clash highlights a deep partisan divide. Trump's team pushes law and order, while Johnson sees federal force as the real threat to his city. The White House's narrative rallies its base, painting local leaders as obstructionists standing in the way. The debate becomes a simple story, a tough president versus resistant mayors, with little room left for nuance or compromise. This standoff forces a national debate. Where does local control end and federal authority begin? The lines are blurred, and the stakes are high. Mayor Johnson and Governor Pritzker stand united, warning that federal deployment without state consent is unconstitutional and will be challenged. They argue that such actions undermine the very fabric of our democracy. The risks are real. Two uncoordinated forces could create chaos and endanger public safety. The potential for miscommunication and conflict is enormous, but if Chicago prevails, it could set a precedent for other cities to resist federal overreach. This could empower local governments to assert their rights more confidently. The outcome will shape how cities and the federal government interact for years to come. It will redefine the balance of power in our federal system. As of September 1, 2025, it's a tense stalemate, a real-time test of American federalism. The nation watches closely, aware that history is being written. However it ends, the implications for democracy, public safety, and local autonomy will be profound. The future of American governance hangs in the balance.